Puneet, welcome to the show. I'm most grateful to you. You're looking very sporty, I must say, as if you've just come off the tennis courts, which is something that Novak Djokovic can't do. What's your overview on this? I think we have to call it a scandal, don't we?
It's an epic scandal. It's probably the biggest tennis scandal I've seen since I've been watching the sport. And it's really difficult to even make sense of it because so much happened. I can only, if I had to use like a small phrase, I'd say a media witch hunt. It was trial by social media. The rulings at the end were shaped not by fact, but by what journalists have written on social media. BBC News reports and online polls were presented as evidence. And because the Australian government took their special power to impose this cancellation of the visa, the judges didn't overturn it because it depends on how they feel about it. It's about a feeling, the perception of what they think about Djokovic. It all came down to the fact that there were stories about him that he's an anti-vaxxer. The media's always preyed on him. He's never been the poster boy of tennis. He was always very much the villain against the heroes, Federer and Nadal. Coming from Eastern Europe didn't help. Maybe rejecting a British citizenship didn't help. And then when he started to break their records, and he's only got the Grand Slam record to break now, they're all tied at 20-all. I think the witch hunt and the comments by reporters and this frenzy to kind of defame him has created this, and it's just so complicated to just cover in, like a few minutes.
Well, I think you did really well in summarizing it. Serbians are not that popular in the Western media and the Western world. I love them myself and always have. That was something that has handicapped him. He has now the full support of the Serbian people, and Australia now has a new enemy to add to France and quite a few different parts of the European Union, to add to China, to add to Russia. Australia is going out of its way to lose friends and lose influence with people, don't you think?
I think the consequences of this case are what terrify me the most. Apart from the devastating impact on tennis fans, I've literally been inundated with messages from people who say they can't cope with this. People have invested 10, 15 years of their life following, the big three to see who's going to emerge the champion. And now there's gamesmanship and politics that are involved, and that's going to change the end result. So apart from the fact that tennis has been stained, the fans are devastated, what does it mean about freedom of speech? So if we go to a country and that government thinks that we may perceive or have a certain idea that goes against what they believe to be correct, they can cancel your visa. They have extraordinary power to cancel your visa. So, Djokovic has never said he's an anti-vaxxer. He's always said he's pro-choice. But whenever he has questioned vaccines, namely a Zoom call in 2020 before the vaccine was even, available, basically that information gets pumped out to the media, anti-vaxxer. And a lot of casual tennis fans who don't listen to every one of his interviews, who just casually see news reports, it gets stuck in their head. So the case came down to what the public perceives Djokovic to be. And it doesn't matter that he's not an anti-vaxxer. The fact that we think he's an anti-vaxxer and he might create anti-vax excitement in our country is enough grounds to get rid of him, even though they've got like a 92% vaccination rate or something like that. It didn't make sense. And that's the heartbreaking thing about it, because it just felt like they did what they want to do. And it's quite frightening to think that if that's going to happen to him, a multi-million tennis star with legal aid, and, he's obviously got lawyers and access to all that, what does it mean for normal people who might go there with certain different religious or political views?
Yeah, well, it's going to be very difficult after what I said at the beginning of the show for me to get a visa to go to Australia. It has an increasingly authoritarian government and a malfunctioning government. A government mired not only in this controversy, but in corruption, allegations, and so on. What's the feeling, do you think, in Australia amongst the mass of the people on this case?
I mean, some of the people, to be honest, have been really embarrassed. They're just like so embarrassed. How can our government do this? It's completely wrong. You've even had tennis players like Nick Kyrgios come out in support of Djokovic, saying it's a complete shit show and it's an embarrassment. And, a lot of people feel that Australia should be stripped of the right to host a Grand Slam. It brings a lot of money into their economy, one of the prestigious tennis tournaments. And if they can treat their 9-time champion, he's won the last 3 events, like this, like detain him illegally, lock him up in a detention hostel, it wasn't even a hotel, and then basically take him to court by saying he hasn't got a medical exemption, even though he did. He won that case. And then he's on the practice courts, he's in the draw, and then basically just cancel his visa willy-nilly because they just decide that, actually, because the BBC News reported that he's an anti-vaxxer, that might stir up some, Australians, rightly so, are embarrassed. And I think they've come out of it incredibly badly. Djokovic has gained a lot of sympathy from some casual tennis fans who just feel that no matter what his stance on the vaccine is, he's a human being and he wasn't treated like that. I just think the way they've treated a champion, he just wanted to play tennis. He's not even gone there for political reasons. A tennis player, they basically used him for political capital because there's an upcoming election and they didn't want to disappoint their voters.
Yeah, he's the first vaccination martyr in that regard. Where is he now? Is he on a plane somewhere?
He's on a plane. I think he's on his way to Dubai. He was deported and he had to leave the country immediately. He's going to go back to Spain, I believe, to be with his family. And he said he's not going to make any further statements about the case or any comments until the end of the Australian Open, because he's obviously aware that he doesn't want any more of the attention to be on him. Basically, they've kind of killed their own tournament off because nobody was looking at the draw. Nobody's talking about the matches. Every single day, everybody was looking at what Djokovic is doing. Last night, we had 80,000 people on a live stream with the Australian Federal Court trying to work out if he's going to be able to play. And I was sitting here last night at 1:00 in the morning, laughing hysterically, thinking, I'm just a tennis fan. Why the hell am I watching this court scene? And they live streamed it. It was such a joke, and I think it is going to go down as a complete scandal. I think it's still so fresh, and there's so much that needs to be sort of learned from this. And but I think the media had a massive part to play. And even though they're now going, oh no, that's a shame. But anyway, let's move on to the tennis. It's a scandal for tennis, and I feel really sorry for tennis fans. The tennis authorities were very silent, which makes you wonder, why would they not support their number one star? They should have made some strong statements, very weak, willy-nilly statements that came out far too late.
And what about his rivals? Did they say anything? You mentioned one tennis player. Forgive me, it's not my sport. But yeah, what about the big figures in tennis? The people that he's locked in this 20 victory, Nadal and so on. Did they say anything at all?
Well, Nadal said very famously, and it's almost become like a famous quote, choices have consequences. So nothing, he didn't, say anything about him being detained, stuck in one room, staring at a wall, his phone was taken away, all of this kind of stuff that, was just terrible. It was a terrible thing to do to anybody, let alone someone who's gone to support a tennis event. And he's just said that nobody is bigger than the tournament, but there's lots of sponsorship, inside information about why he might have said that. I can't really go into the ins and outs, but Federer has been very, very quiet, even though he's supposed to be one of the most popular personalities on the tour. And it seems like he's always very well protected by the media, and nobody's questioning why Federer hasn't spoken out. Djokovic would definitely have spoken out. He's very much a revolutionary, a union man. He's setting up a players' union, basically, to represent the players, to increase their earnings from the sport. And I think that's one of the reasons that the tennis authorities don't like him. He's standing up against them.
Well, Advantage you, I think that you've explained the situation to those of us who are not tennis fans very, very clearly indeed. Puneet Bandal, journalist and author, thank you very much indeed for joining us.